All right, everybody, welcome to Dusty's Corner, a segment with me, Dusty, and my helmets over here, my Panthers collection. And today I'm going to talk about a really interesting topic to me. I love the history of NFL uniforms, and we got some cool new ones this year. We got 4 teams doing complete uniform overhauls. I'm not going to talk about the teams that just introduced alternates this year. I'm going to talk about teams that completely did new sets or new helmet. So the teams that we've got involved with that are the Browns, the Lions, the Broncos, and the Jets. And I'm going to start with the Browns because theirs was pretty subtle. It wasn't the uniform is staying the same, but what is changing is the helmet. So what I have right here is the new helmet, a mini helmet version of it. And what I really like about this, I'm partial towards gloss helmets, and you can see that they added the gloss back in. And just to compare it with their old helmet, that's here. This was their helmet last year. You can see that they had a brown face mask, which I always thought was an odd choice when they went to this matte helmet, that they went with a brown face mask. In this team's history before, they had always had a white face mask or a gray face mask, but then they did brown, and no other team has a brown face mask. I know they're trying to go with the Browns aesthetic, but when you're working with orange with brown, it just doesn't work particularly well. So I personally was never a huge fan of the matte one. Now, they kind of tried to throw it back a little bit last year, and I think the year before, they had a variation of this helmet that had this shell, but it also had a white face mask on it. So it was kind of an intermediary between these two. But now this is the new one, and they added the gloss back, which I think it's an improvement. But hey, it's the Browns. It's an orange helmet with a brown and white stripe. Not too much you can do with that. So that's the Browns. The next one I want to talk about is the first uniform overhaul that we're going to talk about. And this is a bit of an expansion of something that was introduced last year. We're going to talk about the Jets. This is their new helmet. And they really tried to modify their uniforms this year to be the new, to be a homage to the sack exchange era of the 80s. So infamously for Jets fans, it's actually the uniform that Aaron Rodgers got injured in. The white uniform was their throwback. It was exactly the same as this. They had this helmet, and they had an all-white jersey with kind of older. There's not a lot of flashy highlights on the uniforms. It's just block lettering with some stripes on it, and it's just green. There's 2 colors on it, white and green. It's a clean, plain look, but they expounded upon that this year and made that uniform the basis of their entire set. So they actually have a green version of that, and they compare it with any of their pants combinations, which they have black, white, and green. So on their promotional art photos for this, they had an all green uniform, which looked pretty nice. They had green and white, and then they also have, with their white, they have the all white that they wore last year, and they also have the white with green pants, which I think works pretty well. And then they took the black jersey that they had in their existing set, and then they added kind of the same idea they had with their old helmet, but just in this style. So they did black matte with the green Jets logo and black face mask. So kind of like I did with the Browns, I'll do a comparison with the old helmet. So you can see that they lightened up the shade of green a little bit here, and the face masks changed. And this Jets logo here always seemed to be a bit too minimalist to me. I felt like they kind of just cut out the Jets logo in their old previous one with the white helmet, just took the Jets part out of that and copy and pasted it onto a green shell. I really like the green shell. I know a lot of people don't, and they didn't really like the old uniform set because they thought it was too edgy, had too many stripes on it, which I can agree with. I think they cleaned it up a lot with the new version, but I really like this gloss green helmet. I love that they went to this. And I know a lot of people, they like the Kelly green version back in the 90s and the 80s. I like this better. But if you're looking at the two helmets here, you can see that they went with the contrasting white face mask as well. And I think that that makes the logo pop a lot more. Makes the helmet just look really nice. Here, it's a black face mask, and it kind of blends in a little bit. I feel like it just wasn't the best choice there. So that's the Jets. And they have the black uniform that I talked about. I am torn as to whether or not white as the logo with like green outline would look better. I feel like the green on black kind of blends in a little bit, so I'm not the hugest fan of that, but I think that this was a definite upgrade. So now let's talk about our next team, the Denver Broncos, who, since they beat my Panthers in Super Bowl 50, are my least favorite team in the league, and they have a particularly bad uniform combination to go with it. So here's their old helmet, and I think a lot of people disliked this change from the 80s and early 90s that they had with the royal blue helmet and the Denver D logo. I personally liked this, but I might be nostalgic for it because I grew up with the first Super Bowl I remember was Super Bowl 32 with John Elway donning this helmet and the navy blue uniforms. But you can see that this helmet is not too much different, but they did go with a matte finish and they've got some speckle in there. The problem with this one is this stripe. It's a stripe that only goes halfway up the helmet and it doesn't even go all the way down. I don't know what they were thinking with this. I think the helmet would look better without it. I did research because the stripe is actually like little tiny triangles right here, and there's a reason behind that, kind of going with the mile-high history of the stadium. I don't remember it offhand, but it was like, okay, so that kind of justifies it, but this is a poor excuse for a stripe on a helmet. I would have just left it off. And I think it pales in comparison to this. Now, me being a 90s kid, I do like the boldness of it. I like the edginess of it. It's over the top, I will admit it, but I like it. It is definitely a product of its era, though, I would say. Now, is being a product of this era where we make stripes like this better? I would argue not. I mean, you saw it first start with the Seahawks when they had stuff within their stripe that went on their logo, and you saw that the Saints with their alternate logo also did it. Oh, yeah, right here. You can see that they have a pattern in their stripe. And another team that also does it is the New Orleans Saints with their black alternate helmet. They have fleur-de-lis in their stripe, which I think is an odd choice, but if for an alternate, sure. But yeah, I am not a huge fan of that Broncos helmet. Now, let's talk about their uniforms because those get even worse. They introduced this new set, and they have orange top, navy blue top, and they also have a white top, and that can be paired with black pants, orange pants, and navy blue pants. So there's a lot of uniform combinations that you can do with that. The problem with it is that it is so boring. They went from having like stripes going up the side. This is reminding me a lot of what the Falcons did with their 2004 uniform up to their most recent rebrand, how they took pretty much all the striping off the uniform. Now, they did get rid of the shoulder patches and stuff like that. I wasn't never a huge fan of that and the changing colors with the shoulder patch going into the side of the uniform. But they went from that because they had the stripe going up their side, and they just took everything off. They've got like a little almost like charger bolt on their shoulder now. And that's not really everything with this is just a very generic uniform. I saw a tweet, I don't remember who posted it, but it summed it up perfectly. It sounds like if someone was making a these uniforms look like if someone was trying to make a movie about the Denver Broncos, but didn't have the rights to use the Denver Broncos, and they were called like the Denver Stallions or something like that. These uniforms do not look like professional uniforms to me. They don't. It's really just kind of a cop-out. And a lot of people spend a lot of time in this, and I'm sure there's details with the uniforms, but I think that this is a major downgrade in my opinion. And yeah, that's all I really have to say with it. I think it's a major downgrade in uniform quality. So and the other thing that they did do with this was they did introduce a white alternate helmet, which is basically just this helmet but a white shell, and I believe it does have that silly stripe as well. And it's okay. It adds some contrast to your uniforms. I like that teams are taking advantage of the 3 shells. They're trying to mix things up, create some creative combinations. And other teams do that a lot better than the Denver Broncos did, as you'll see as I talk about some of the other teams later. However, one thing I will point out is that they did use the 3 shell rule by the NFL to allow the comeback of the royal blue Denver D helmet along with a throwback uniform, and that looks very good. So if they did one thing right with this rebrand, that's what they did. They're bringing back the Orange Crush uniforms from the 80s and early 90s. I think that looks really good. Unfortunately, they're probably only going to wear it for like 2 games a year or something like that. And the rest of the year, you get the putrid stuff that they churned out with their main uniform set. So the next team I'm going to talk about, I don't have a helmet for them because the main helmet that they introduced stayed the same. It's the Houston Texans, and they did a lot with the uniform here. They now have 4 different uniform tops. They have their navy blues, they have their whites, they have a red alternate, and then they also have their H-Town Color Rush alternate, which I have opinions on that one. I think they kind of got it right, but they kind of went in the wrong direction for it, in my opinion. So let's talk about their first one. Their first one, they didn't change too much. The helmet stayed the same, the navy blue uniform. They added some striping on the side, and it's kind of the same situation for the white uniform. It looks a little sleek. They changed the number font. I think it's a decent modern update. But now we got to get into the red alternate uniform, and they introduced a red alternate helmet with that. And I think the idea of just having the bullhorn on the side is an interesting idea for the alternate helmet, but they went with red chrome for the shell and a red chrome face mask, and that's very bold. Like, I think I'm torn between thinking it's too much, and then I actually like it. I like that it was a bold direction they went with. What I don't like about that uniform combination is the red uniform that they have. They inverted the color of the numbers, and honestly, if I'm going to be honest, it looks like an XFL team or an arena football team. It's really giving me vibes of the second iteration of the XFL's Houston Roughnecks with PJ Walker on it. They had that red uniform with the inverted navy blue numbers, and it works, but it just doesn't feel like a professional uniform to me. It almost seems like they were trying too hard, that they just inverted the color of the number just because they could. To be perfectly honest, I would have preferred if they had done the red chrome helmet with the red face mask, but kept the Texans logo and just kept kind of the uniform aesthetic they had for their all red last year. I think that looked really good, really sharp. So I feel like they should have just stuck with that. But hey, they're trying something different. The bullhorn. Teams are going to experiment with having these alternate helmets, and I think you are going to see a lot of interesting combinations. The H-Town uniform is the last one that the Texans introduced. The helmet has like an H logo on it with a star, and they were kind of going with that. I'm not a huge fan of the logo. It's really also just kind of the Texans' basic shell. The uniform, though, it's navy blue with red numbers and a neon blue outline, which I think is a really cool idea. But what they have on their patch is an inverted Texans logo with neon blue outline. I personally think that that's what it should have been on the helmet itself. I think that would have looked awesome. But instead, they went with the H-Town thing, and it's like, okay, you're doing something different. Doesn't really work for me. I think you could have done it better. That's kind of the Houston Texans updates in a nutshell. Now let's go over to the team that I think did it the best, and the team that I kind of want the Carolina Panthers to emulate when I think that they're actually going to go down this road and take advantage of the 3-shell helmets. It's the Detroit Lions, and I think that they nailed it. So this is their new helmet right here. It's a modern take on what they used to have in the 90s with the blue face mask. It's a nice contrast with the silver helmet, and the uniforms that they have, they're really nice, modern homage to the old Lions uniforms. They've got the white and they've got the Honolulu blue. So they updated the Lions blue for this. It's a little bit lighter than it used to be. And the uniforms that they have right now are just very classic uniforms. And I think that works because the color scheme works really well. And just for comparison's sake, I don't have a mini helmet of it. I have a Pocket Pro of it. This is what they had last year. The blue is darker and the face mask is silver. And I just really like that they went with the blue face mask. It's just a nice, bold contrast, and I think it really makes the helmet pop. But let's talk about what I think is the biggest thing that they did. They introduced a blue helmet with a black jersey, and I feel like they beat the Panthers to the punch on this one, because I really want for these 3 alternate helmets that are allowed, if the Panthers were to redesign, that they would have a black and a blue helmet. And what the Lions did with their black uniform with blue numbers and the blue helmet, I think is just an absolutely stunning uniform. I think it's a great uniform combination, probably one of the best in the league. Like, it looks nice. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of the matte black logo for the Lions on the blue helmet, but I think everything else about the jersey looks fantastic, and I can't wait to see them watch it. I mean, I see these uniforms come out. I'm the type of player who would get Madden because it's like I want to just see the new teams and their new uniforms and try out all the uniform combinations. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Lions this season because they're gonna look sharp. So to wrap this all up, I'm gonna give my grades for the uniform upgrades and stuff. And I'll start with the Browns. I think I give it like a 7 out of 10. It's like, yeah, you changed your helmet. It looks better. Nothing that fantastic. The Jets, I think I'm going to go ahead and give this like an 8.5 out of 10. I really like what they did with the new helmet, and the new logo just looks better than it did before. It fits the helmet a lot better, and I like the uniform set that they have. The black one probably could use a little bit of improvement, in my opinion, to make it pop a little bit more, but I think the idea is there. The concept is solid. The Broncos, I'm going to give this like a 2.5 out of 10. I despise this uniform. I really kind of hate everything they did. I'm going to revise that a little bit. I'm going to put it up to a 4.10 because of the throwback uniform. But if they didn't have that throwback uniform in there, this is probably one of the worst rebrands I've ever seen. And now let's go to the Lions, and I'm going to give this one, I want to give this like a 9.5 out of 10. I think they hit this out of the park. You've got the tribute to the classic uniforms. It looks modern, and then you've got that new, really nice black alternate that just works really, really well with that alternate blue shell. I can't wait to see that in action. And I think I give the Texans rebrand an 8 out of 10. I like what they did. I like what they were going for. There's ways in which I would improve it, But overall, I think that it's an improvement for the team. The red one is very bold. I would have personally just stuck with like white numbers with an outline and not done the inverted colors. That's just my mild critique on that, but I think it looks really good overall. So that wraps it up for Dusty's Corner this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.